Yeah, so I wanted to ask you about like where we left off last time with this whole idea of oneness and solipsism.
Oh,
There
yeah.
are questions. Would you be okay if I ask you about that?
Yeah, sure. It really depends what we mean by one, because oneness. Aside the the New Age approach, a spiritual approach that is this pancentric vision of the universe, like Deepak Chopra, like all this sort of stuff. I don't believe in any of those things. Of connection, there is no connection between Jupiter and a giraffe or a banana tree.
Okay, but I think to be honest, like I've never heard of the New Age. Like I've heard of it, but I've never really known what it was before you actually mentioned it to me. Like after our talk, I googled it and that's not really what I'm talking about. Like the oneness that I'm talking about, it comes from the existence of the self. So kind of in like your as you said, like the thing that we know for certain is that we think.
Yeah.
And that's where the oneness comes from. There's like no two yous. There's no like there are no two entities that is you. There's only one of you. And what I'm trying to get here is that you don't even need to assume that there's anything else. That's my claim, and I want to like see like where, like if I'm wrong, where I'm wrong, because this is a big statement to be wrong about. And otherwise, I want to like see what you think about it.
What do you mean by we should assume that there is not there isn't anything else aside the self? I don't quite understand this position, this viewpoint.
I mean that's so I'm very happy that like I get to talk to you about this, because it's really difficult to talk about this in a let's say in a critical setting. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that like you like there's no I don't think there's a reason to assume that there's an external world. You can assume that all of existence, the whole universe, is you at some fundamental level, and that is because there's no way how you can test the existence of anything in its certainty. You cannot be certain that the external world exists. Like it's when we say of the external world, it's just a pragmatic way of us to talk about all of us being just one thing. And by that, okay, so what I mean by that is I'm just going to try to demonstrate to you how this is how this could be self-contained, as in like how this doesn't arrive. There are no how I think that there are no like contradictions in what I'm saying.
Okay.
So and the thing is that I have to talk in the first person in order to like get the message across.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that like you are aware that I am a separate person from you.
Yeah.
But are you certain that you are not just imagining me talking to you? And vice versa. Can I be certain that I'm not just imagining all of this happening in my mind, in my own existence?
Yeah.
And I think that the answer is no. You cannot be certain. I think you can pretty much assume, for all sakes and purposes, in a non-conflicting way, that you are the purpose, that you are the reason for the existence of everything, because you create everything that exists. And the reason why this is okay is because there's only one of you.
Okay.
There's nobody that can come and tell you, oh, you're not doing this. Because whoever is going to come and tell you, oh, you're not everything that exists, or you're not creating everything, you're going to be like, but I'm creating you, tell me this. How can you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes. So
Okay.
let me say something a moment. For what concerns me, you could be not a person talking with me now, but a software, a program, like a very sophisticated artificial intelligence that which creates like a voice and an interaction with me, an intellectual interaction, and therefore you as a human being do not exist. But nevertheless, whatever you are, you do exist.
Yes.
You do exist as a CPU, as a robot, as a machine. Or, but let's go crazy. We can assume for a moment that you are, let's say something really crazy, but why not? Let's assume that you are a person from the future or from the past talking with me, and with some reason we can have this conversation in my present. But you are dislocated somewhere in another time. As a person, or as a computer, or as an alien life form, or whatever. Unless I'm schizophrenic, right? Whoever you are, you do exist. As a computer, as an alien, as a person from the future, from the past, as an entity, as a thinker, as whatever. Unless I'm schizophrenic, and therefore I'm just talking with myself because I'm hearing voices, and I believe that those voices come from a computer device, and I believe that I'm really talking with a person or whatever. And instead, my brain is making it up. So look, in the case I am schizophrenic, so I have voices within my brain. My mind is one with those voices, because my mind is the creator of it.
Right.
But in the case I'm not a schizophrenic, so I'm not sure if I cannot prove it now, but I think I have enough evidence to believe I'm not schizophrenic, because I
Yeah, I'm real. Like.
yeah,
It's okay.
yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
so that if we exclude this possibility, being schizophrenic, whatever or whoever you are an agent, sentient, not disconnected, because we are talking right now, but separated from me.
Oh, so that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that
Yeah.
you cannot know that.
Yeah.
I'm saying that you can't know if I'm in your mind or not.
Yeah, so the point is, how can I prove it? Well,
You can. But that's my claim. And sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, my point is, why should I prove it? And why do I need to prove it? Exactly.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that you don't need to. And it's like meaningless to do.
Right. That's so. Unless the situation becomes very intriguing, because maybe you claim to be a person from the past or from the future, then I would like to have to collect evidence about it. But that's a matter of curiosity. And even my point is that even if you are a person from the future, from the past, or an alien, or whatever you are, I don't. But this is a personal position. I know other people probably will freak out and stuff like that, but I personally don't really care much about that. What I care about is the quality of the conversation and what we have to share and to say. I don't really care about proving uh, about how can I say this? I don't really care about proving the existence of thinking agents. What I care to prove is bombastic claims. For instance, I think that bombastic claims require bombastic evidence to be trusted. And but when we have a conversation, I don't really care about these kind of questions. Can I prove that the person is real or not? I think what is real, as I said in the other call, what is real is that we think. And what is also real is that our thinking processes are conditioned. And the so-called self, there is in academia or critical thinking or in the study of memetics, as the self is also known as the selfplex. This idea of the self, I know it's difficult to comprehend this, and it sounds like some spiritual stuff, but it's none of those things. The so-called self is an illusion we carry around. What is mine is my historical identity, like where I come from, what I've done, my labels. I'm a doctor, I'm not a doctor, whatever. And what is mine is my body, the way I think, and so on. But the self, also known as personal consciousness, is really an illusion. Of course it does exist, but it's not mine. Myself, which is why in English we say myself. Why do we say myself? Myself means who is talking? Myself. I'm not the self. I have a self. So myself. Who is saying myself? Who is declaring that there is a self and that is mine? If I say my house, my book, my website, my credit card, my car, my country, all of those things, I can prove that are mine or not. But they are parts of my life, but they are not me. So, and in that case, my car, my house, the town where I live, my country, my nationality, my beliefs, the agent that is talking there is the thinker. The thinker is talking and thinking, hopefully, properly. When we talk about the self and we say and we think that way, in every language, myself, who is talking there? If is there a thinker separated from the self? That's the point. That's my point. Is there a thinker? But, well, aside the language, it is just language is fine. I mean, I don't mean to be polemical with the language, but my point, I think, is very important and very deep. It's difficult to comprehend this stuff because it's not philosophy. Is pretty much the reality we live, the cognitive reality we live. Is there a thinker separated from the self? Meaning, a thinker that is capable to think about the self without using as filters the thought processes that created the self. This is a big issue to me, and I think it's very important. Education.
So are you saying that the thinker requires a self to be thinking, or that the self is a thought of the thinker?
I think something, but well, I don't think there can be a thinker without a self, because a thinker without a self will be a thinker that simply has no clues.
But can there be a self without a thinker?
Of course, I think most of us are selfs without thinkers. So most people are, they do, but if you, I lived in Bali, Indonesia for 5 years, a little bit more. And so I know locals very well. So I don't mean to put them down or stuff. The culture is very peculiar. It's very, it's a very curious culture because they are Hindu, but they are not Hindu like in India. They have their own Hindu religiosity. They practice their religiosity every single day. They are so ingrained in it that religion not really religion, religious thinking occupies the 85% of their daily life, both privately and collectively. So they have to practice they have to create the offerings, they have to practice the rituals, going to the temple, polishing the temple every single day. Even in commercial areas, if you go in a shopping mall in Bali, the shopping malls look pretty much like Western shopping malls. They are pretty much identical. But each single shop has a little temple, which is very, very typical of Bali. And each temple has to have the offerings and the incense, all sorts of stuff, every single day. So they are nice people usually, but they have been made so dull because of their religiosity. And the reason why I'm talking about Balinese people is that because Bali, the locals are a good example to show how there can be selfless, so human beings that have a self, in that case a religious self. I am an Hindu, I am a Balinese, and all this sort of stuff. And there's my name, there's my my caste, and so on. They do have a self, but there is no thinker. So they are unable to think without the self. So what I'm trying to say is, can we think about ourselves, and not only about that, about everything else? Can we think about all of that stuff without the self, without using the self as a filter to decode the reality? And I will say, I don't see why not. I know it's incredibly counterintuitive, because also we are not trained, we are not educated this way. But is this possible? And imagine if we were educated this way. So let me give you a simple example.
So let me understand what you're trying to argue, that
Yeah.
you don't need the self to think.
And now,
or that we don't need to. Yeah, go ahead.
no, I mean, I know it's complicated. I'm sorry, but I'm trying to do my best to make things very clear. Don't get me wrong. If I want to talk again, as you say, the first person. If I do not have a self, I'm lost. I don't even know my identity, who I am, and not only my name. I don't know. I have no clues. I have no skills. I am alive, but I'm really lost. I don't even know how to cook. I'm capable of thinking because I still have a brain, but cognitively speaking, I'm really lost. Because I don't even know what the sun is without a self. So, but wait, there is a technical self that is the result of what? What we have been learning in many, many years, the information we accumulated, the data, the notions, the technicalities of that. So I know what fire is, I know what dangers could be, all this stuff. This is what I will call the technical self. And then we have the existential self. So when we say I know myself, no, we don't know ourselves. We know the past. We have known ourselves. And now the existential self is a construct of many conditioned factors, like what we've been told, the influences we received from the culture, from the politics, from the parents, from the partners, from the friends, from nowadays, from whatever we receive and permeate from the overload of information we have to process every day because of the modern communication, internet, social media, news, fake news, and so on. So all of that is the existential self, or the me, or the I, and the labels, and the mimetic identities, all the rest of that. So the technical self is important because I have to, if I don't have my technical self, it will be even impossible to talk in English or in Italian to me. I, I, I will not have the notion of the alphabets, the language, the grammars, and so on. So I do need that. But maybe I also do need the existential self, so to have some decent level of self-esteem. But that's not the point. The point is, can I think about everything? And can I think about my own self without using the existential self as a filter in order to understand stuff? And my point is, I don't see why not. It's just very, very, very hard. Sorry, I have the cat here making noise. Sorry.
So about the technical self, why stop at your birth? Why don't you go back to in history?
And sorry, I don't quite understand your question.
So you're saying like we are conditioned, right? We have conditional thinking because of how we were brought up, our culture,
yeah,
our parents, and so on. But what I'm saying is, before you were born, right? Like that's also part of who you are, even before you were born.
But before I was born, there was not a you. I was. But
I think that's so. My point is that isn't that so at a more fundamental level? Isn't that inconsistent? Like because then you have to say, the you had to like come up from like nowhere. It had, right?
No, wait. I don't. We do not come from nowhere. We come from other elements such as minerals and atoms and the combination of all those things, and which then became organic, and then we know the process.
Yeah. So, what I'm saying is, why don't you factor also that into what constitutes the self, the technical self?
Oh well, yes. I think it is good. It's good. Like it's good. I believe you're also talking about the biological aspect of reality, the reality we're made of.
Yeah, but not only that. I'm also talking about like how the biological aspect came to be. Right. So even the water in our bodies, or the iron, like the iron in our bodies was first made in stars.
Yes.
And then the stars were made from these large gases of mass.
Yeah.
Universe, and then all the way back to the Big Bang. What I'm saying is that in order for you to be here, or for me to be here, or anything to exist, all of that actually have happened. And although we are only conscious of a slight period of that time, like for what, 20 or 30 or 40 years, the reality is that in order for us to be conscious during this 20 to 40 years, the universe had to have evolved for 14 billion years. Now, okay. I'm not saying that I necessarily identify my consciousness with the 14 billion year history, but I'm saying it is fundamental in myself.
I agree, but this is what good science is doing, or is trying to do. But you're talking about knowledge and acquiring and being conscious of in terms of knowledge, where we come from, and I even doubt the theory of the Big Bang, because it's not really it's probably true, but we are not fully sure about it. But that aside, yes, it's very important to understand where we come from, and all the process, which is incredibly difficult. Probably we will never come to know everything, not even like a decent percentage of what the universe is all about. Is very important. Is very important in terms of knowledge, in terms of science, all of these things. But when also physics and so on. But when we talk about consciousness, all of that has very little to do with consciousness, almost nothing to do with consciousness, because consciousness has to do with our brains. And there is another thing that if I'm personally fascinated by this topic. In the future, we will most likely be capable to interface human brains with computer machines. So a supercomputer, a future supercomputer will be capable to handle billions and billions of information at the same time, in a microsecond, about also where it comes from, from human beings that have created that, and then all the process back to the eventual Big Bang and so on. But if we will pretend to use a supercomputer like that in order to acquire millions or billions of years of elements and data and stuff, our brain will collapse, because it's not biologically designed to handle such a tremendous amount of information. So I think we have to be very careful with that, because also this goes back to a topic that people often asked me, and is the matter of God. I don't believe in God, but my viewpoint is that assuming that there is a God, not obviously not the God described in the religious books, which is manufactured and quite ridiculous, but assuming that there is a superior intelligence which we do not see because it's too complex. I think a proper approach to this topic will be something like this. First of all, what makes us think that supreme intelligence cares about us? Maybe that supreme intelligence doesn't even see us, just like we don't see the bacteria inside our body that are trying to survive, and we don't care. We know they are there, if we know it, but we don't care. So, and second, why do we consider important to know how that superior intelligence thinks? I personally don't care, because precisely because it's superior and it's too complex, with my limited brain, I will never understand, not even 1% of how that supreme intelligence thinks. So why bother? I think we have other problems to deal with, other priorities, and this constant strive to understand if a supreme intelligence is there and how that superior intelligence thinks, I think is absolutely futile. I think we have other important things to deal with in our own human dimension.
I was just wondering about so you were talking about the brain, right? That our consciousness is fundamentally nested in the brain.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is that the brain is also fundamentally nested in the universe. Like, would you not agree with that?
Well, not quite. The brain is a result of the universe.
Yeah, so how isn't the universe also fundamental in the construction of consciousness?
Well, I will say yes. Yes, I agree with that. No, I have no criticism about about it. Whatever the universe is, uh, and we know very little about the universe. Whatever the universe is, yes, the universe is the causing factor, or we can call it responsible, and not in a religious way, but the creator of the brain. Yes, because the brain came from all of that process that started probably maybe with the Big Bang, probably with the hyperquasar. The hyperquasar is a factory of galaxies, is a factory of nebulas. The nebulas create galaxies. The galaxies they condensate, they create stars, and stars create planets, and then all the rest of that. And then organisms, eventually, where there is the opportunity to develop life forms, and then eventually brains. Yes. So chronologically, we cannot separate the human brain from the universe. Of course, the brain comes from the development the universe went through for billions of years. Yes, but that said, to say that the brain has a connection with the universe, that is very odd to me, because I don't even understand what that even means. The brain has inward connections, and then eventually has connections in terms of processing of data with the external world, and also with other brains. But to say that the brain has some link with the universe, well, historically, yes, but there's an historical link. To say that the human brain now has a connection with the universe is a very ambiguous claim, and to me personally has very little meanings. Because this is not, we cannot prove it, we can only speculate about it, but I think we have to be very clear with this analysis. It depends, are we talking historically, the process? Are we talking presently, about the present? Are we talking about consciousness? Physics has nothing to do with consciousness, but nevertheless, physics is the causing factor of consciousness, no
Yeah,
doubt.
so how do you say that physics has nothing to do with consciousness when you literally after that say that physics causes consciousness?
Well, because physics is the study of the matter. So the atoms, the quarks, the chemical processes, and all the pressure, the third laws of the thermodynamics, and all the rest of the stuff.
But it's also the study of the process.
Oh yeah.
This matter goes through.
Yeah. But then
but consciousness is also just a process.
Oh yeah. I agree. But also, the physics is what created brains. So neurons, synapses, all the rest of that. And then the brain created what we call the mind, or the so-called consciousness. But the matter of consciousness is not physical, is metaphysical. And when I know it's very strange, this term metaphysical. I rarely use this term in public, because when we talk about metaphysics, people automatically interpret, and they think we are talking about something mystical, or no. Metaphysics is an academic term, and it refers to what is not physical. So physics is physical, the matter, and what is metaphysical, meta means beyond, is no spiritual, mystical, all this sort of stuff. Metaphysically, something is not physical, but comes from physicality. So the mind is not physical, but the mind came from some and comes from something physical, which is the brain. And the brain is the result of the physics and the evolution of it. So I think we have to be very careful with this. Is there a link between all of those things? Of course there is a link. Is an evolutionary link, is a link in terms of the chronology of events, evolution of things. Long ago we were just a bunch of minerals, and we will become again that in the future, when we will, after we will die. So of course there is this chronological link. I mean, the first law of nature is nothing was ever born, nothing will ever die, and everything changes. And that sounds sort of new age, but it's not. It's a matter of fact. But it's not applicable to the matter of consciousness. So I was a bunch of atoms in the past. I became what I am now. I will become again another bunch of atoms. And in the middle, I experienced that stuff we call consciousness. So we come and we go, in the middle we try to understand. And hopefully we will understand something, I hope. But that's pretty much the dynamics of things and the universe. I think that I think we have to be very clear with this. It's very important. Because otherwise, we have a very romantic mind. We like to fantasize, and to say something. I've been talking a few months ago with a person who is close to Richard Dawkins, and this person is Professor Susan Blackmore. She's a very nice person. I also met her in Poland personally. And we had this, I think you probably can find the interview somewhere in YouTube. We were talking about this matter of consciousness. I have to say that, with all due respect, her position is somehow ambiguous, because she believes that to say that brains have consciousness is a bias. To me, it's not a bias at all. Brains have consciousness. Bananas do not have consciousness. Stones do not have consciousness. And with no brains, there is no consciousness. There is, I don't think. Sorry?
I want to ask, like, how, like, if we cannot be certain about the perception, like you're conscious, right? I mean, you are conscious, but we perceive the external world, as in we have signals from the external world coming to our eyes, and we talk to other people, and other people do science, and because of that we know that we have brains, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to get at is that even the simple process of thinking, of like just thinking that you're actually observing something external is not true. That's what I'm saying. So everything that you're saying about the brain having consciousness, for me, that's a non-starter. You're not telling me anything when you say that, because you, how I understand it, is that you have heard or you've learned about the brain and the structure of the brain, and you believe that you have a brain, as in you know that you have a brain. But the moment when, like, the whole thing, the whole thought process is contingent on you actually experiencing an external world, which I am asking you, which I'm saying that does not necessarily exist. There's no external world, because everything that you can ever be certain of is only your own consciousness. It's only your own experience.
Okay, so let me try to understand what you're saying. Let's
So because I want to like I wanna like clear my confusion if I have one. So
I
yeah,
understand. So you are saying something along these lines. If we have a camera, we can film the external world. Nevertheless, the camera is filming the reality, even if people are not there. But nevertheless, we do need people to test what the camera filmed. And so the people are always involved in a way or another.
But I think you don't like that's again a no starter for me, because people, I'm assuming in your definition, is something that exists a part of you. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that people like actually don't exist outside of you. All people that you ever think of, you only think about the people in your own mind, in your own consciousness.
I agree with this. I agree with this very much. But you're talking about the matter of existence. This is very complex because, for example, the colors we acknowledge, we recognize, we watch, we see, are not really true. If I have a car and the car is red, in total darkness, the car is no longer red. There's an illusion of the brain. The red color disappears. I mean, it's not even there. It's a pigmentation that my brain computes, and that's why some people don't see red as we see it. They see they don't see it, or they see it in another way, or they see it black and white, like some animals and so on. So in that case, the color is a creation of our brain, combined with the level of lights and all the photons and the photonic energy, all this sort of stuff. But the car, the object, doesn't cease to exist. Because I can touch it, I can crash on it, it can kill me, and all the rest of that. But
but all of that is you interacting with the car.
Yeah.
But what you perceive to interact with the car, right? You perceive that you're interacting with something in the external world. But what I'm saying is that you cannot even be certain of its existence outside of you. But being that you are touching the car, you're seeing it, but you're not actually seeing a car that is separate from you. You're just seeing a car that is inside your mind.
Oh yeah. I agree with that. My point is that conventionally we developed a linguistic language, which is cool, and we also developed an existential language. Let's say that this way. So we can say, oh, that's my car. My car is real, but it is my brain that is decoding the car, and also my brain is decoding the reality in which the car is real. And conventionally we accept that it's because it's the way it is. But and then there are other things that we think they are real in terms of time and in terms of perception, but as a matter of fact they are not real. For example, we have never seen the sun. We only saw the sun 8 minutes ahead. In the past, because of the light. And we are capable of seeing stars now in the sky in the night. That we see the stars, we think the stars are there, but they do no longer exist because they died millions of years ago. And what we are seeing now is the light still traveling in time and space. So there are realities we perceive as realities, but they are not longer realities in terms of time. And then there are realities that are tangibly there, but it's still the work of our brain that perceives that as a reality. So conventionally we can call it a reality. But long story short, my personal viewpoint is that personally, I don't mean to be arrogant or whatever, but my personal viewpoint is that I personally do not really care about if the car is real whatever we mean by real, I mean, conventionally I care, of course, because I would like to use my car and not to get that stone. But conventionally is okay, technically. But existentially, I don't really care if the car is real or not. I really don't care if the car is real or not. It's not an issue to me. What I care about is trying to be accurate with the perception I have about my car or I'm using an example now, or about another person, or about a claim, or about objects, or I care more about that. Reality is a very strange topic. Is often a meme, and often misleading, and often doesn't even exist what we think that is real. Look at religion, for instance. I don't care if the object, the people, the world, the universe, all of these things are really real or not. It's not in my mind. I don't think this way. I don't think it's important. Conventionally, it is important, of course. It's very important conventionally, because otherwise we want to be able to find a way back home if we have to drive somewhere, because everything will be messy. But existentially, it's not important at all. I believe it's just a distraction. I believe that we should focus on what is really real, and what is really real is that we think, and as far as we know it, we have no evidence, but just to say something, we can be something like Elon Musk suggested once. Maybe we can be a video game, a virtual reality created by whatever we say we lived. Our memories can only be some sort of like live show, and we maybe are a 2 minutes video game experienced by the person in the year 200,018, and we don't even know that. And or we can be a simulation created by aliens or whatever. Well, all of those things are just theories. No evidence. We have no evidence about all of that, so I don't see it. I don't think it's important to bother much about it. But even assuming that that is true, nevertheless, I don't care if I'm a video game. I don't care if I'm an alien simulation. The fact is still there, and the fact is that I'm thinking, and that's the reality. So in that reality, there are non-realities. My illusions are non-realities. The colors are non-realities. Conventionally are good. Color is just a language. Even time is a non-reality. There is a chronological time, which is good. It's a form of language too. So 1 year ago, without chronological time, we won't be able to have this chat. But psychological time is another illusion of the self. It's not about aging or the biological age and so all sort of stuff. Then psychological time, for example, when we remember something that that gave us pain in the past, maybe the loss of a loved one, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, a person who died, and we remember that, and we automatically have a pain. And we say, and we think, those memories are painful because they have been painful. This is false. I'm not picking the pain from the past. That doesn't exist. I'm reactivating the pain right here, right now, through files, because of those memories, those pictures. But I'm experiencing the emotion right here, right now. I'm not evoking the pain that was there in the past. When we say I'm experiencing the past, no. There's a misconception of reality, cognitive reality. So you see, these things are very complex, and it's easy to get somehow confused and lost into the understanding, the proper decoding of all of these things. But back to the point that, to me, personally speaking, conventionally, of course, I do care about what is real. I want to find my way home. I want to use proper language, and so on. Of course, I want to have my computer, my stuff, and so on. But existentially, I really don't care what is real, what is not. I think that I think we will never know, and it's not really an issue. It is, I think can be really we can get paranoid if we think this way, what is real or what is not, and has very little to do with a matter of consciousness, because as a matter of fact we know we are conscious, but we do not know what consciousness is. We just don't know what consciousness is. What we know is that we are conscious, and is that we have a lot of interpretations, and all of them are wrong, because we don't know what consciousness is. Probably we will never know. We can only suppose, theorize. And so why bother? I repeat, I think we have other things to do that are far more important in terms of developing of proper thinking skills, refining our thinking skills, progress, solving human problems, developing human solutions. I think these are the important things. I have some issues with the matter of existential philosophy. I think philosophy is important, but often philosophy is really a waste of time, because it's a constant speculation, and often it involves also confabulations, and it leads nowhere. It's just some sort of spinning around with big bombastic concepts, but then at the end of the day, they don't really give us a proper way to refine our thinking skills. So this is my viewpoint, but it's a very personal viewpoint. I will not. I think it would be nice, but I will not propose this as a measured viewpoint applicable to each single human being. But nevertheless, I do believe that it would be nice to have this stuff in the field of education. I think it would be very important, and it will create serious benefits in a very short time. And not only this, of course. It's also this.
I think the problem is that officials that put these programs forth, would also find it hard to comprehend them. Yeah, that's why this can only go through private education.
Unfortunately, yes, because of public education, we can say. I mean, it would be nice, but public education in most cases is pretty much a joke, and it's pretty much about making people learn how to fit here and there. Unfortunately, private education, but not even there. I mean, even there can be quite difficult, because all of this stuff is. But we have to keep in mind that our brains are wired to be fallible, and also to go for the short cut, for the easy ways. All of this stuff is unnatural, not in a negative expression, of course. But this form of thinking is unnatural. Critical thinking is not natural, and it requires a tremendous amount of psychological energies, and also the passion. And it's not about just saying, I would like to understand things, so let's give it a try here and there. That would be just like acquiring notions, and then it's pretty much futile, because then you can create other beliefs, and or maybe you can create some people that say something, they become gurus, other people follow them, and we saw all of this stuff all throughout the human history. This form of understanding requires perseverance, passion. People have to be serious in it. The problem is that most of us are not serious at all. Not even intellectuals, big intellectuals, that they like to speculate and this and that. But then at the end of the day, I repeat, with a personal life and cognition, they are not really much serious with understanding of these things. And in some ways understandable. We do need distractions in a certain way. We do need entertainment. We do need amusement. Obviously, joy, humor, happiness, jokes, relaxation. We need all of those things. I understand that. The problem is that we do not quite educate those things.